That roofline. That second floor. That is not a motorhome. That is someone drawing a line through everything we thought we knew about mobile living and starting completely over. Full transparency up front. What you are looking at is a fictional concept generated by AI. No manufacturer, no price tag, no delivery date. Just a vision. But the design language embedded in this thing? It is sophisticated enough to deserve a serious breakdown. Here is exactly what we are doing today. We start outside, front face, side profile, the geometry, the lighting, what it all communicates. Then we go inside and read the interior from the exterior clues, detective style. Then we get into the powertrain logic. Why full electric is the only thing that makes sense at this level. And then I give you my honest verdict, including the one thing I would change. There is one decision on this concept I have genuinely not seen anywhere else. I am saving it for the exterior walk around, and trust me, it is worth the wait. Let's get into it. Start at the front face, because this is where the design makes its first and loudest argument. The front of this concept is faceted. Hard geometric planes cut at angles you would normally associate with stealth aircraft, not road vehicles. Every surface is intentional. The V-shaped badge sits dead center, and it is not decorative. It anchors a wedge geometry that points downward and forward like a predator mid-strike. That communicates aggression, precision, and forward intent all before the vehicle has moved an inch. Now look at the windshield. It is not a gentle curve. It is steeply raked and continues the angular vocabulary of the body. From a driver's perspective, you are sitting inside a cockpit, not a cab. That distinction matters psychologically. You are not operating a house on wheels. You are piloting something. The LED signature lighting traces the perimeter of the front face in a single unbroken amber warm line. That warm tone against cool satin silver paneling is doing something specific. It is making the vehicle feel inhabited before anyone steps inside. That is a design intention. That is the difference between a vehicle that looks parked and a vehicle that looks alive. Now step back and read the side profile, because this is where this concept does something I have genuinely not seen executed at this scale before. This concept is 2 floors. A full, functional upper deck. Not a pop-up roof extension. Not a raised sleeping loft. An architectural second floor with floor-to-ceiling glass on 3 sides, what appears to be a railed terrace at the rear, and integrated planting. You can see foliage in the upper-level renders. Whoever designed this is not thinking about a vehicle. They are thinking about a penthouse that happens to have axles. The roofline logic is interesting. The upper deck does not sit flush with the lower body. It overhangs at both the front and the rear, creating a cantilevered shadow line that breaks the visual mass of the vehicle. Without that overhang, something this tall would look like a box on wheels. With it, it looks considered. It looks designed. The glass-to-body ratio on this concept is extraordinary. The lower living zone, the zone visible midship, is almost entirely glazed on the side we can see. Floor-to-ceiling glass in a motorhome at this scale is an engineering statement as much as a design one. You are committing to acoustic insulation, thermal management, and structural reinforcement all at once. It is not the easy choice. It is the right one. Let me talk about the paint and surface finish for a moment, because the materiality here is doing a lot of work. The lower body is satin silver. Not gloss, not matte, but satin. Satin finish does something specific in light. It holds form without reflecting you back at yourself. You get the shape of the body, every angular panel, every crease, but the surface does not compete with the architecture of the vehicle. It serves it. The contrast between that silver and the dark glazing creates a light-dark alternation that makes the vehicle read as more complex than it actually is. The stance. This concept rides on what appear to be triple rear axles with large format, flat-spoke rims finished in near matte black. Triple rear axles at this scale are not a styling choice. They are a structural necessity for distributing the weight of a two-story living space across the road surface. But the designer has turned that engineering requirement into a visual signature. Those 6 rear wheels communicate planted, unmovable authority. You do not accidentally park something like that. You arrive. Now, the one detail I flagged at the start. Look at the rear upper level. There appears to be an open terrace, a railed outdoor deck on the second floor of a moving vehicle. Not a fold-out awning. An integrated outdoor living platform that is part of the vehicle's architecture at rest. I have analyzed dozens of concept motorhomes. Not one has placed usable outdoor space at the top of the structure. That decision alone elevates this from interesting to genuinely original. Which brings us to the interior. Because if the exterior is making promises this loudly, we need to audit what is actually happening inside. And based on what the exterior is telling us, I think I know exactly what we are going to find. Now, obviously this is still conceptual territory. There are no interior renders in this particular concept. But here is what I do when that happens. I read the exterior like a floor plan. The proportions, the glass placement, the roofline logic, all of it tells you what has to be happening on the other side of that skin. So let us do the detective work. First, ceiling height. Use the wheel diameter as a scale reference. Those rear wheels appear to be somewhere in the 22 to 24 inch range. Standard motorhome wheels are typically 22.5 inches. Run that scale upward through the body. The lower floor, lower body to where the upper deck floor would sit, looks to be approximately 2.5 to 2.7 meters. That is generous. That is not just stand-up height. That is high enough that you do not think about the ceiling. That is the difference between a mobile room and a mobile space. The upper deck adds another floor. If you are at height with standard head clearance, you are looking at a total structure in the 5.5 to 6 meter range at its peak. That is a building. Now let us zone out the lower floor. Starting from the front and working backward. The cockpit. Based on that steeply raked windshield and the visible dashboard geometry in the render, the cockpit is going to be narrow and deep, more aircraft than bus. I would expect a 2-seat arrangement, possibly with a fixed center console and a full digital instrument cluster across the width of the dash. Autonomous highway capability is almost certainly part of the brief here. When the vehicle is driving itself, the cockpit becomes a forward-facing observation lounge. That windshield angle makes that experience extraordinary. You are sitting inside the geometry of the vehicle, watching the world through a frame that moves with you. Behind the cockpit, and this is where that massive midship glazing makes sense, you have the primary living zone. Based on the visible furniture in the render, there is a full sofa arrangement here, almost certainly facing a large display screen mounted opposite. This is not a dinette. This is a lounge. There is meaningful distance between the seats and the walls. The ceiling height in this zone, judging from the glass run, would be close to the full 2.7 meter lower floor height. Imagine sitting in that space on a mountain road. Glass on 3 sides. The architecture of the vehicle disappears, and you are just in the landscape. Continuing rearward, the kitchen. In a vehicle at this length, and this concept reads as somewhere between 13 and 15 meters overall, you have the real estate to do a kitchen properly. I would expect induction only. No gas at this positioning level, both for safety and for the all-electric powertrain logic we will get to in a moment. Surface area, integrated appliances, likely a full-height refrigeration unit. The storage philosophy at this level is concealed, not cabinets, not visible hardware, but flush panels that open to reveal. The kitchen, in a concept like this, should feel like a kitchen in a boutique hotel. You could cook a real meal. You would want to. The sleeping zone. Now, in a 2-story layout, there is a real question about where sleeping happens. My read on this concept. The lower floor holds a ground-level master suite at the rear, accessible from the living zone by a transition point that separates public and private space. This would be directly above the rear axle group, which is traditionally the most stable part of the vehicle at rest. The upper deck, I think, is the secondary living space, the place you go to be above everything. The terrace, the view, the top of the world, the bathroom. Water management in a vehicle at this size is not trivial. Gray water, black water, fresh water. You are carrying all of it. But a concept at this level is almost certainly imagining a full wet room situation. Walk-in shower. Possibly a freestanding basin. The engineering to make that work in a moving vehicle is not simple, but it has been solved at the ultra-high end of the motorhome market already. This concept is simply taking that solution and elevating the finish. Smart systems. Based on the interior lighting visible in the render, that warm, indirect amber-toned lighting running along the ceiling and under units, this concept imagines integrated scene-based lighting management. Not switches, not dimmers. An environment that responds to time of day, to ambient light through the glass, to whatever the occupants are doing. You sit down for a film, the lighting shifts. You wake up in the morning, the space brightens gradually. Climate works the same way. Not a thermostat, a learning system. That upper deck. Let me spend a moment here. Whatever is happening on the upper level, the combination of three-sided glass, terrace access, and apparent integrated planting means this concept is genuinely imagining a biophilic upper living space. Biophilic design that incorporates natural elements, has a measurable effect on perceived well-being. Someone put a living plant on the second floor of a motorhome concept. That is either genius or insanity, and the line between those two things in design is exactly where the interesting work happens. The interior of this concept, based on everything the exterior is telling us, is not a motorhome interior. It is a residence that moves. That distinction is the entire thesis of this design. Let us talk about what would actually have to power all of this. If this were ever engineered for reality, the powertrain conversation starts and ends in one place, full electric. There is no version of a concept at this positioning level that runs on diesel in 2025 or beyond. The brand statement alone makes that impossible. But more practically, an all-electric powertrain is the only way to manage the noise, vibration, and cabin quality a two-story motorhome at this level demands. Internal combustion in a vehicle you are living in is a compromise you stop accepting the moment you can avoid it. Battery capacity. This is a heavy vehicle. A two-story motorhome at this length and material quality is probably sitting somewhere between 18,000 and 22,000 kilograms gross. For context, the heaviest long-haul electric trucks currently in real-world operation, vehicles like the Freightliner eCascadia, carry battery packs in the 475 to 500 kilowatt-hour range for roughly 400 kilometers of range. A motorhome at this scale, driven more conservatively, would likely need something in the 350 to 450 kilowatt-hour range for meaningful daily range. That is a large pack. But the technology exists today. The solar roof. In a near-future production scenario, that flat upper deck is an enormous solar collection surface. Not as a primary power source, you are not running this vehicle on solar alone, but as an off-grid interior system sustainer. Climate, lighting, smart systems, water heating. Park this concept somewhere beautiful for 4 days, and the solar contribution keeps the residence running without touching the main pack. That is the real value of solar at this scale. Dual motor, dual axle drive. Those triple rear axles are not just structural. In a real-world build, you would distribute drive motors across at least 2 of those rear axles for traction management on uneven terrain. This is not a concept that is meant to stay on highways. That stance, those wheels, the ride height. This concept is imagining access to places motorhomes do not typically go. Autonomous highway mode. That cockpit angle, that windshield geometry. This concept is not designed for a human spending 8 hours watching the road. It is designed for a human who occasionally takes manual control. The journey in this concept's world is part of the resident's experience. You do not drive to the destination. You inhabit the vehicle while it moves toward the destination. The technology to fully realize this concept does not quite exist yet, but the closest equivalent to every system in this vehicle is already in development, already in production, or already on the road. This is not fantasy. This is a few years early. Let me tell you what I actually think of it. Alright, here is where I actually stand on this. What it does genuinely well, the roofline and the terrace decision. I keep coming back to that upper deck outdoor space because it is the one move on this concept that you cannot explain by looking at other motorhomes for reference. There is no reference. Someone made that decision from scratch, and it reframes everything. The upper level stops being a loft and starts being a destination within the vehicle. That is an original design idea. Those are rare. What seems impractical? The glazing. I love it on paper. In reality, the thermal management of that much glass in a vehicle that is meant to be used across climates and seasons is an enormous engineering problem. Triple pane, electrochromic glass that can switch between clear and opaque exists, but at the size and quantity this concept requires, you are adding enormous cost and mass. In a real-world build, I think you would see a renegotiation of the glass-to-panel ratio. Not dramatically, but meaningfully. Most impressive single detail, the satin silver finish against the amber lighting. It sounds simple. It is not. That color and material pairing is doing three things simultaneously. It makes the vehicle look inhabited at night, it makes it look precise in daylight, and it ties the exterior and interior into a single visual language. That kind of material thinking is what separates a design vehicle from a rendered one. One thing I would change, the front badge. The V mark is generic. A concept this resolved deserves an identity mark as original as its architecture. The badge is the one place where this concept feels like it borrowed from somewhere else rather than inventing from scratch. What it signals about the direction of luxury mobility. This concept is making a specific argument. It is arguing that the future of ultra-luxury travel is not bigger planes, not faster cars, and not taller hotels. It is the ability to bring your residents to the location, not just camp near something beautiful, but live beautifully in proximity to it. That argument is getting more compelling every year as airports get worse and hotels get more homogeneous. This concept is a vision of what the alternative looks like. It is a concept. It is fictional. It is AI-generated. And it is still one of the most architecturally resolved motorhome concepts I have analyzed on this channel. Now, I want to know what you think. If you were speccing out that upper deck, would you prioritize the outdoor terrace, or would you sacrifice it for more interior square footage? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this kind of analysis is what you come to YouTube for, subscribing is simply the most efficient way to not miss the next one. New concept drops every week. I will see you there.